Hello and welcome everyone to the final webinar in the Future of Work 360 series. We are going to start. My name is Jennifer Gordon. I am the Director of Marketing and Communications here at Allstream. I'm excited to be here today as your host. I do, and on behalf of our panel, want to appreciate your taking the time to join us today, especially given the global events that are happening, and for anyone with family, friends, and colleagues abroad. All of us at Cisco and Allstream are thinking of you today. If you've joined us for the previous two webinars, today's hour will be slightly different, as we'll have a roundtable discussion with our panelists about operational efficiency and productivity as how it relates to our work life evolving. Today, a few housekeeping items before we get started. Today's session is being recorded. It will be available to everyone on demand. We will be emailing the link around to you. And today is all about being interactive. So there's an application in the multimedia viewer on the right side of your screen. Here you can answer questions, you can interact with us, you can submit questions for our panelists to answer, and you can vote on questions other people have submitted. So we really want to engage with you as much as possible, almost as if we're together in person. Today is all about operational productivity and how you can save on your bottom line. We'll be focusing on security and customer experience, probably two of the biggest topics business leaders are wrapping their heads around as we all try and build out this post-COVID future of work framework to help us all drive forward. In the first webinar, we reviewed some tools to capitalize on future of work. We focused mostly on the human tools, and today we turn our attention to communication technology. For many businesses to be cost-effective and productive, the future is all about integrated solutions, especially solutions that enable businesses to deliver the best experience for your customers with all the security assurances considered. Security isn't just a technical problem, it's an operational issue, it's an issue of efficiency and effectiveness based on limited human and budget resources, as well as escalating demands and challenges such as COVID or increasing security threats. And we're at a place right now where managing your security, your costs, being productive, all the while making sure you deliver that positive and easy experience both consumers and customers are expecting, well, it's just foundational and essential to continue growing. So how are we going to get into this topic? And there's lots of conversation to have. We've got a great panel with us today who are going to dive into the topic and answer all these questions, and I think really get into a good discussion about this. We've got two speakers from Cisco and two from Allstream. Joining us from Cisco are Joey Lemonnier and Dan Matthews, and from Allstream, we have Stephen Fisher and Matt Waldo. Joey is a sales manager at Cisco Meraki. He has been there for 5 years, and when he's not helping his partners deliver best-in-class outcomes to their customers, he loves spending time on his family ranch in Kansas and using Cisco technology to support their herd of cows. Dan Matthews is a CTO for Cisco's Global Contact Center Sales and Strategy Organization. He leads the roadmap and planning for Cisco's customer engagement technologies, and he works closely with organizations to collaboratively define the future of customer engagement and the changing expectations consumers have for the way they interact with people and technology. With me from Allstream is Stephen Fisher and Matt Waldo. Stephen is our COO here at Allstream, and he leads IT and network architecture, technology innovation, and network operations. He has more than 20 years experience driving excellence in engineering, in network architecture, service delivery and operations, as well as designing and implementing cybersecurity operations and compliance programs and agile development practices. Finally, Matt Waldo is our connectivity solutions and managed IT services senior product manager. His area covers SD-WAN and our network security services. Matt has a broad perspective on the industry with over 30 years experience with service providers as well as telecommunications hardware and software manufacturers. He's able to deliver the right communication solutions which enable customers' businesses. So I'm going to start things off with a simple but probably not easy question to answer, and I'm going to direct it to all of our panelists today, but also ask the audience to join in. So if you go to the multimedia viewer, you'll see a topic called Future of Work Word Cloud, and there you can enter your answer. So to the panel, in one word, what comes to mind when you hear future of work? Joey, why don't you start things off?
Unprecedented.
It's a good word.
For me, I would
Matt?
say innovative.
Evolving.
Structured.
And Dan?
Unstructured.
Ooh, these are good ones. And so what's our audience thinking in terms of the word and how they voted? I think we'll be able to probably share the word. Oh, there we go. Leadership, future, effectiveness, work from home, collaboration, remote, flexible, digital. These are great words, and I think we're going to hear a lot of discussion. These are topics that are going to come up as we go through the rest of the presentation. So these are excellent, and we probably can add a few more if we re-ask the question at the end of today's presentation. So let's jump into our first topic. It's security. So I'm going to ask the audience to once again engage in the multimedia viewer. Before I ask some pre-questions to our panel, I would like our audience to vote. There's a topic on security. So under that topic, which question would you like our panel to answer? Would you like to know how upgrading your security with a managed service provider can result in some cost savings? Or do you want to know what the panel thinks about which solution or solutions are right for your business? You can vote now. And while our audience votes, I'm going to start off by asking the panel, how can SD-WAN improve productivity, enhance security, and customer experience? Matt, do you want to get things started?
Sure. So great question. There's two kind of areas that I would focus on. For productivity and customer experience, those kind of go hand in hand, right? Because if you're productive, you can enhance your customer experience. The nice thing about SD-WAN, which enables multi-site connectivity over typical internet connections, is that you can prioritize your applications such as voice or other applications that maybe you have in the cloud or you have at one of your other remote locations. You can prioritize those. So you're not using just internet traffic and you're competing with regular internet traffic. You can prioritize those type of applications to make sure that those are always given the highest priority and they're never going to be impacted by regular browsing or general traffic. So that's going to help your customer experience, making sure you're always connected to your customers and also your productivity. On the security side, again, some of these connections are over the internet, so you can apply or the connections are going to be encrypted, right? So site-to-site communications are not just regular internet that are subject to network or internet issues. You can encrypt those connections between locations to make sure that you mitigate any type of internet threats. So both security, productivity, and customer experience.
Great, Matt. I'd also add to that as well. You know, SD-WAN is really an innovation that we've seen out in the market. Traditionally, to get the same outcome that Matt mentioned, you know, MPLS was the play. And while MPLS does still have a use case, we've offered a lot of flexibility and scalability to companies and organizations out there with SD-WAN. And essentially, we can achieve the same outcome at a fraction of the cost. And if you think about the environment we're in today and everyone leaving the office and that perimeter of security and going home, SD-WAN really enables that experience of being in the office while you may be in a distributed location.
And I would add from a customer experience perspective, you know, all of us as consumers, we have an expectation that we're going to have access to our products and services and the apps that companies expose so that we can help ourselves. And what happens is if those are not available, the first thing that we do is, well, we blame the company for not meeting our expectations. And then we call. And either we call a branch or we call a contact center, and it becomes high effort for us, but also it becomes a very high cost interaction for a company because you're using human capital. So putting in that SD-WAN framework, especially in a cloud environment where you have distributed applications, distributed agents at home, as mentioned, distributed consumers across multiple channels, you have to ensure some level of quality and reliability there so that you don't have to escalate to those high cost interactions. And so SD-WAN has a significant impact the underpinnings of all of your application strategy.
And I would just add some of the use cases that SD-WAN brings to the forefront are multiple access technologies and failover methodologies. So you can really enhance your productivity and customer experience by having a wireless failover or having multiple accesses so that you maintain that uptime and maintain that experience for your customers, and also, while staying very productive for your employees, right? When the internet goes down, that's not an experience that is good for customers or good for productivity. So those use cases really lend themselves to enhancing the customer experience and productivity.
Excellent. Great way to start things off. I do want to remind our audience that the Q&A section is always open, so please feel free to ask any questions that you might have for the panel, and we will get to them throughout the presentation. We've been, at least most of us, have been all working from home and remote for so long. So how best can businesses start to prepare for that back to office security when they have been remote for so long? Are there considerations they need to take, and what's top of mind? Joey, do you want to get things started?
Yeah, we've been living and breathing this dilemma here at Cisco over the past couple of quarters. We went from that traditional in the office type of environment, security posture, to distributed and remote with all of our employees. Now, that was a huge lift just to get people into their homes to be able to maintain that level of productivity. The real challenge now is there's a lot of opaqueness of what it's going to look like moving forward. Are we going to be fully in the office? Is it going to be a hybrid model? What we're hearing out here in the Valley is the hybrid model is really what's going to be moving forward. And with that being said, how do you have that security posture, that productivity, be able to offer that customer experience when employees are coming in and out of that corporate office? And that's where the heritage and the experience of Allstream can really help guide you through this journey. I think it's hubris to go on this journey alone. Use a trusted source to help not only navigate the technologies that can facilitate this, but how to do it in a cost-effective manner as well.
Excellent. Our audience has voted, and they have a majority vote in terms of what they would like for you guys to answer. So they want to know, about what you guys think about which solutions are right for businesses to consider from a security perspective. Matt, Steve, do you want to start things off by answering this one?
I'll take a stab at this one. So it really comes down to defining your needs, right? So are they operational efficiencies? Are they increased productivity? How are you going to support your business growth? And then with security, kind of overriding all of those needs. So taking all of those into consideration, ranking those, what's most important. It's not something that you should do alone. Having an expert to help you understand, how to meet those needs is something that Allstream is designed for, right? That is what we do, is to help bring solutions to meet those needs. So with Allstream's flexible portfolio, understanding how you grow and what you need not only now, but also for the future, Allstream can help you design a solution that meets those needs. So that includes security, that includes multi-site networking, that includes all sorts of customer experiences you want to improve upon.
Yeah, Jen, when I think about this question, in the past, typically this was solved with a point product, meaning we'd get a heavy firewall, we put into the business, and that offers the security. The dynamics and landscape have changed. It's no longer about one single technology that's going to keep you secure. We now have things like physical security, environmental things inside the office with the pandemic, and Allstream, in collaboration with Cisco, brings this platform to bear that checks all the boxes top to bottom. So it's not just about putting a heavy firewall into your environment and feeling secure. We've got two-step authentication. We've got environmental sensors and cameras and top to bottom platform that can help get the outcome here. And again, Allstream has that breadth of portfolio that can help facilitate this.
And to elaborate on what Joey said, there is no one technology in your security portfolio that does everything. It's every piece of technology you have has to have an integrated approach for security. So someone like Allstream brings to the table things combining all of these technologies. So is that SD-WAN? Is that firewalls? Is that denial of service protection? Is that its approach to taking your access technology and making it secure? Is it your voice security with encrypted SIP? All of those components come together in a unified solution to enhance that security across the entire breadth. And you have to have that kind of approach in this environment, because one thing doesn't solve security. It's operational practices. It is, everything throughout the environment needs to have an approach, a philosophy, and a thought process, and a unification of how they all interact together.
Quite a lot for a business to be able to manage all these integrated solutions and how making sure that everything fits together and works together and continues to offer that security protection.
That's right. I mean, that's what Allstream is really proud of, is that it brings those technology partners together, those solutions, and it tests and makes a flexible solution for your environment to combine those, make those interact. Those all interacting together is no simple task. So that's what someone like Allstream brings to the table, is how do those technologies all interact together to give you that peace of mind and that security in your environment?
We have some questions coming in from our audience. I want to take a few minutes and go through some of them, because some of them are really good. Matt, there's a question for you. In addition to firewall, what other security tools should businesses consider setting up and making sure are core components to their security system?
Great question. So obviously firewall is the most prevalent, obvious for protecting you from internet threats. But there's other things that you need to consider as well on your network. Are those connections into your business, into your offices, are they a dedicated connection? Are they a secure connection? That is something that you can do to provide that extra security back into the network, having a dedicated connection. If you don't have a dedicated connection, you have something like a broadband, and a firewall will help protect that. But there's another piece of this too, to make sure that not only your network is secure, but what about your employees? What about your property? What about your customers into your business? One of the things you can do also is surveillance cameras. That's where Allstream can help with that as well, by providing multiple solutions to ensure the physical security of your businesses and also the employee safety as well, with quite a different range of advanced surveillance cameras for your business.
So there's another question that's been asked, and I think that this is one where a number of businesses are at. Many have legacy systems and are hearing more about cloud and opportunities, and maybe are a bit unsure as to what's out there, what's available. So I think, if you do have old legacy systems and you're maybe wanting to get rid of them and upgrading, how and where do businesses even start? There's so much to take into consideration, so much to think about. Where's the best place for leaders to get started? I'll open it up to whomever would like to jump in.
So what we would recommend is the place to start is to engage with a company like Allstream, who can bring in resources to understand your business, understand where your pain points are, understand where your risks are, and really tailor a solution that gives you a path to where you want to be long term. Everyone's on a different cycle. Everyone has different requirements, different needs, depending on what your business is and what's going on. And so we've built a platform that has a very flexible approach to that. How do you add, modify, change, and evolve over time? And every business has a unique solution that it needs to evolve that technology journey. And there isn't one size fits all. I couldn't tell you for your business, you should do this. It's not prescriptive. It needs to be tailored for you and what you have and what your needs are and where your risks are.
Yeah, I really like this question, Jennifer, and thanks for bringing this up. So I kind of think about this, and I'm going to use an analogy. So many years ago, when I bought a car here in California to drive back and forth to work, that was great. It got me to point A to point B. In California, you have to pass smog, and my legacy car will no longer pass smog. So now I'm in the point where, do I go buy a new car? Or there's now technologies that can give me the same outcome, i.e. Uber, to get me to the office, get me home. I don't have to pay for the car up front. I don't have to pay for insurance. I don't have to pay for my oil changes. And the outcome's the same at a fraction of the cost. This is what we're seeing a lot of customers start to do, is go to companies like Allstream who have the expertise, the breadth of the portfolio, and can simply allow that small monthly investment in new technology, a new stack, to get the same outcome a company wants.
So I think the next good question to kind of focus in on is, these are great ideas, great suggestions. When is that time for a business to reevaluate what they have from a security point of view? Is there a one good time, or is at any point it's a good time? And how often should they do this reassessment? Should they reconsider what's available? Is it based on the technology that's out there, or what their business is going through?
I would say that it depends a lot on where the business is going, right? And with an eye on also how they interact with the cloud and what their businesses need. So as far as when is it time to reevaluate a security posture, I think that's something that it has to be kind of always ongoing. Because things are always changing, right? Your businesses change, and also the threats to your business from the internet are always changing as well. So it's something that I think you always are evaluating, and using help from or evaluation from Allstream to understand your security needs is a good way to start, right? As you're expanding or adding business locations, if you're increasing your bandwidth on your services, you're moving business applications to the cloud, those are all going to trigger changes in your business, but you always have to take in consideration, is this going to be secure? Is there a threat that I have to worry about? And that's a great place for Allstream to be able to provide that guidance and provide that overview of how to make sure that those changes aren't going to cause you a impact on your business.
Yeah, to Matt's point, it does depend on the circumstances you're dealing with. However, the time is now. And at the very least, the discovery of what's available and how to navigate this in partnership with Allstream, there's no harm in starting to dig into what that looks like. I can imagine your CTO, your president is probably asking some pretty heavy questions right now of what we're going to do. It varies. A small automotive shop has a different needs than an enterprise. And for the enterprise player, we know this hybrid work thing is relevant. It is urgent. We've got to get people back to those levels of productivity and feeling safe and good about doing it. So, my advice is it never hurts to start looking into this now.
And I think we're seeing a huge shift, right? I mean, that cloud shift is huge. And some of those, when is the right time, as Matt said, it depends on what is going on in your business, but some of the right time will be driven by, who is your external database provider and what are they driving you to do? Because many of them are driving you to the cloud. Many of them are driving their solutions to not be, if you renew your maintenance contract now is going to change to a software as a service and be in the cloud. And every time you interact with or make those modifications, it's a perfect time to evaluate the overall technology stack and how do you make sure that as you make those moves, security is top of mind.
So not just the solutions being integrated, but so intertwined and integrated with the core elements of what you're doing in your business, what you need.
That's right.
So we talked about the how often and when should you get started, but then there's also the what's first. So if there's a company that needs to upgrade a lot, or maybe if they're a new business starting, like what do they first need to consider, and where should their head go to first? What's the essentials?
So I think it falls into a couple of different areas, right? And certainly my mind goes to there's this drive to the cloud, and we know that you have more and more interactions across the internet. And so that is a place where you have to start, is your employees will be using more internet-based resources in their day-to-day exchanges in business. Therefore, you've got to start there. What is your, how is that internet protected, and how am I protecting my employees as they're using cloud-based resources? Then you get to solutions like, if I have multi-sites, how do my sites talk to each other? When is that exchange of traffic, and what is the security around that? Dan will certainly talk to us about, how do we interact with customers from a voice perspective when they call in, or from a contact center when they're contacting us? What do those contacts look like, and what's the security of those contacts? The ideas around what the voice infrastructure used to look like, and what it is today, and how you protect those voice interactions. There's a whole new set of threats and thought processes and ways you need to think about those moves and changes. So it really depends on what are the critical pieces of your business that really enhance your customer experience, that enhance your profitability, and then look at those and evaluate as you make changes to those, or as you enhance those areas of the business, how do you bring in and really evaluate the security of each and every one of those interactions?
Great. There's now the budget element to all this conversation. So, with increasingly we're seeing more and more businesses, budgets are becoming a little bit more limited. And then obviously we want to make sure that we are conscious and aware of that. And so tools being a little bit more expensive, how does the business consider, what they need, their security needs, with maybe a limited budget?
Yeah, it's a great question, Jennifer. And I think Allstream has really got this one in the crosshairs for the audience. Traditionally, it was an organization's responsibility to acquire the assets, i.e. the technology stack, implement, perhaps with some help, and then maintain the policies, the firmwares, the updates, which, as Dan mentioned, requires human capital to do. The trend we're seeing in the market, and Allstream has done really well at this, is we've now have the opportunity to deliver the same outcome to an organization with a mere monthly investment. The commercial model that we've come to market with allows an organization to take advantage of all this great technology that's out there and available, but the ability to consume it in a monthly investment, thus providing cost savings, flexibility, and most importantly, back to that human capital, giving them the opportunity to focus on other areas of innovation in the business, i.e. getting the employees back in the office, getting customers back into the restaurant and feeling safe about it, getting that new application spun up to keep customers engaged. I know none of you are going to get a raise keeping the Wi-Fi turned on. However, good things are going to happen when you continue to drive the business forward.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
if I could just add on to that too, that incremental change that you need in your business is so much easier with a managed service rather than the upfront expense of a firewall, for example, where you need to grow it. You need a larger internet connection, for example, that's going to cause you to change your firewall. You have to ditch what you already spent money on, buy a brand new one, versus something that is a managed service where it's an incremental change, and the cost to the business is not as severe as it would be if you have to rip and replace a firewall that's already existing. And then on top of that too, if that device that you own, that you bought, fails, you have to go replace it. You have to spend the capital to go buy a brand new firewall, for example, rather than a managed service. Something like it happens. Let's hope it doesn't, but it gets replaced automatically, just part of the service. So any type of software changes or updates to security profiles happen automatically with a managed service. You don't have to worry about those things.
And to what Matt and Joey have said, leveraging a company like Allstream, who has scale, right? So engineers, technicians, processes, and people who have done this, right, saves you in time and the skill sets you require, because these technologies aren't simple, right? The skill sets you need, and especially in these environments we live in today where these are scarce resources, right? They're hard to find and train and keep, up to date on what's going on. Leveraging someone like Allstream who has those people, has that scale, and has the technology partners and has experience with those technology partners to take away some of the complications that you would run into, which will take you time, money, and resources.
That friend you can always lean on for
That's
support
right.
and help
Right.
and advice. Yeah. We have a great question from someone in the audience. With MPLS's inherently more robust security, but SD-WAN's more attractive price point, how do you see the two coexisting in a hybrid environment over the next 12 to 18 months?
So I'll take this. I see that hybrid environment sticking around for a while. And I think that it exists much longer than even 18 months. And it really is about locations. It's about bandwidth. It's about requirements. I think we look at the world at Allstream in the way that we create these hybrid networks, right? Taking, MPLS or private line services, Ethernet-based services that we can create private connections across, for the high bandwidth fiber-based locations where there's a huge amount of bandwidth that we can create those secure connections using those MPLS technologies. And then we layer those with, branch offices, smaller locations where we take the best of SD-WAN, leveraging those, wireless access or broadband access, getting you the best solution from a bandwidth perspective to those specific locations, being able to marry those together and have this hybrid environment that takes the best technologies for the best solution at those specific locations. That's really, in my mind, that's going to stick around a while. And that, coming to someone like Allstream, who owns a network, has those resources, has those tools, and has the software and the hardware components to create SD-WAN environments, being able to merge all of that together, that is the best experience you can have for your business, because you get the best of everything, right? You get the best high bandwidth availability, and you get the software tools that really, make those branch offices or those lower bandwidth locations really integrate to the overall solution in the way you need it.
Great. I'm going to wrap up the security section with one final question. So digital transformation, big words that we hear quite a bit around right now, can be a double-edged sword. So how can a company keep their business and company safe from security risks while also maintaining that high customer experience standard? And this is a great question that was asked, which will hopefully transition us to the next topic of customer experience. Someone want to take this one? Balancing that security risks while also maintaining customer experience standards.
Yeah, I guess I'll jump in just to talk about the need for that today. As consumers, all of us in this webinar, we are actually sharing information about ourselves, both implicitly and explicitly. And we do that assuming that if we share this information, we're going to have a better experience. So we assume that organizations are going to be advocating on our behalf. And so there's this necessity to make sure that we're being good stewards of identity, of my history as a consumer, my behaviors, my attributes as an individual, and taking that and turning it into positive outcomes. If you don't invest in the ability to keep identity secure, the ability to keep that information secure about how I work with a product or service, all of this information potentially could lead to a negative experience if, falling into the wrong hands. So intrusion detection, being able to make sure the data is locked down, being able to audit and monitor that information in a way that is not intrusive to the end user is super important. And to the earlier points, if you can get that as part of a service where, again, the industry is constantly changing, the needs around how to secure data is constantly changing. If you have somebody with that history, with that knowledge, who, as a managed service can constantly monitor and maintain that for you, it's just value add, where now you can focus on the application and the outcome and not have to worry about the foundation of just, keeping that application secure. So hugely important from a customer experience perspective.
Great. Excellent. It was a great segue into our customer experience section, which we're going to turn to next. If you have more security related questions, feel free to keep asking them in the Q&A section and the multimedia viewer, and maybe at the end, if we have time, we'll try and get to them. But I do want to transition over, because the next part of the conversation is so critical, us as all consumers, but also as we all kind of try and provide the best experience for our customers. So I'm going to give the audience 2 questions to vote on. If they go to the multimedia viewer and under the topic of customer experience, which question do you want the panel to answer? Are you interested in knowing more about what impacts customer experience can have on profitability? Or would you like to hear how companies can start identifying pain points with their customer experience, how they can start figuring out what they're doing wrong so that they can course correct and start to do things right? So as the audience votes, and we'll tally those up, I'm going to maybe start things off with asking Dan a question. What type of customer experience or contact center solution should I invest in, or should a business consider investing in, based on their size and their complexity?
Yeah, so the answer to this question changed quite a bit over the last 24 months. If you look back in the day, companies just built a contact center, trained their agents the best they thought appropriate based on the products and services that they offered, and away we went. And I think the change that has happened has, as consumers, our expectations have shifted. We expect to be empowered with information and capabilities to serve ourselves. And if we can't do that, then we feel like, I actually have to put effort into contacting you, explaining my situation, hoping the agent knows enough to be able to help me. And it just feels like, you didn't give me enough tools to actually solve my problem, or this became an exception that fell in my lap as a consumer to have to handle. And so beyond just core contact center, I think the first solution that we see a significant investment is digital engagement technologies. So as I'm talking to you right now, I bet you're getting emails, maybe an SMS from your child's school letting you know about some updates to the schedule, or a notification on WhatsApp or Facebook. As consumers, we are living in those channels. And that's where we feel we have the least amount of effort and is natural for us. And so especially over the last 24 months, communication has shifted digitally at such a fast pace. Consumers expect that organizations will communicate with them across those digital channels and will notify and keep them up to speed on things that are happening around their products or services. So that, like, I'm not surprised if there's an issue with a service, that requires me to put in effort to go solve, right? So digital engagement is hugely important because it feels natural to the consumer. It's low effort, and it's where consumers want to interact. Now, the outcome of that is that the interactions that overflow to contact centers, like if all else fails on a digital channel or in an app or on a website, if I have to call a contact center, the result is that interaction's more complex, because as a consumer, I couldn't get an answer any other way. So now I'm calling this poor agent and I'm going to be like, look, I've tried everything. Here's my whole history. I really hope you can help me. And so now not only is it important to build out a contact center, but you have to invest in the tools, things like AI, things like data and analytics, things like context, to help the agent not only understand the consumer's history, but maybe potential outcomes and tools where they can get an answer quickly. Because the problems that now fall through to them is not going to be like, hey, I'd like the balance on my account. It's, I have a significant issue that I can't solve any other way, and you're my last line of defense there. So it's investment is a combination of digital engagement technologies to empower the consumer, as well as in more intelligent tools in the contact center to empower agents. Now, in terms of size, we like to say small doesn't mean simple, large doesn't mean complex, and vice versa. What we're finding is that any organization, regardless of size, you are competing with organizations across verticals for the best experience a consumer has ever had. So for example, like you walk into the Apple store, like they ask you who you are, they greet you by name, they know your history. By the time you're at the back of the store, like they have your issue resolved because they have that context. You felt like they knew you. It felt natural. Like that whole engagement felt like, wow, you know what? They're advocating on my behalf. Now, that's just one example, but you as a consumer might have that experience, and now you're going to go work with your insurance provider or your automotive dealer or name the organization. You're going to be like, hey, I had this amazing experience with Apple. Why can't you guys live up to that experience? And so even if you're a small organization with digital engagement, with the tools that are available today, it doesn't matter. You have to provide that same experience that consumers are having elsewhere. And the last example I'll share here is, in small organizations, I see them, using like WhatsApp, where, everybody has that on their phone and they'll send in a problem, and there might be a team of advocates on the back end helping to triage those issues. Now, I don't know if that organization is 4 people or if it's 1,000 people. I just know that through this channel, which I love to interact with, I submitted a problem and I got a response in a very natural, low effort way. And so, digital engagement and contact center are hugely important to invest in, and consumer expectations have changed. So like now is the time for investment, or at least explore the strategy for how you're going to engage with consumers across those modes.
That's great. Yeah, and me as a consumer, I definitely have that, where I experience one thing here in one place and I absolutely start applying it to the rest of the businesses I interact with. And so how do you measure the effect of customer experience has on a company? What's that measurement look like?
Well, there's a whole discussion around like key performance indicators. How do you measure success? How do you measure experience? At Cisco, we're a big advocate of customer effort score. Like, how much effort did Jennifer put into working with the product she has, or getting service, or getting her question answered? But if you look at this in terms of like action items, one of the easiest things to do is become a consumer of your own organization. So if you look at the way that consumers work with you in the branch or on a digital channel, or even when they call a contact center, try it yourself. Go in and see what consumers experience, and try to understand where some of those high effort experiences are happening. It's one of the quickest ways to really put yourself in your customer's shoes. There's a technology approach as well, which we use by applying customer experience management technologies. We have a platform called Experience Management, which will track high effort experiences and customer sentiment across their entire journey. And there's a whole conversation which Allstream can have with you around best practices for applying that across your website, digital channels, the contact center. But really, there are AI and technology tools that we'll look and understand what's working and what's not working with customers. Where are they struggling? Where did, like, did Jennifer call 3 times this morning and not be able to get to an agent and they abandoned and she never came back? Like, that's bad. So being able to track those behaviors, being able to track sentiment, high effort experiences, and then getting that back into the loop where, again, with digital engagement, we could reach out to that person and say, hey, Jennifer, we're sorry. We saw you tried to get a hold of us. You couldn't get through. How can we help you? Or even like reactively having that information available on the channel or in the contact center. So if that consumer reaches out to you again, that they're high risk. Potentially we put them at risk for churn, and we could do some special things for them. So there's a combination of experience management and understanding sentiment and journey, and then being able to turn that insight into action. That's what we're doing here at Cisco, and we're helping our customers to do that with the likes of Allstream, but also bring in the best practices across verticals. I don't want to talk your ear off here, but we talked about consumers applying their best experience across verticals to you. It's one thing to look at just like within your vertical, how should we treat consumers? But, it's folks like Allstream who could say, you know what, let's benchmark the experience you're providing across retail, across financial, across manufacturing, across healthcare, so that you're providing an experience that's not just one dimensional, but it really has the attributes of what consumers are looking for.
So I'll just elaborate a little. I think, Dan, that's perfect, right? There is so much data and so much understanding about what interactions look like and the tools that exist to analyze that data and give you feedback. But we look at one extra thing, which I think is critical to really, at Allstream, what are our customers really think of us? And that is, how long have they been with us? And are we helping them with their digital transformation? Are we helping them with their journey? How many products are they buying from us? And are they evolving their business with Allstream? And I think that's a critical indication for us of, are we doing a good job for them? Because they're buying more, we're helping them solve more business problems, and they're relying on us to be that technology partner to really evolve their digital transformation.
And I'll add one final thing to this. When I think about this question, Jennifer, there's one word that comes to mind, and it is simplicity. As a consumer myself, and I'll use an example here, this device, this company in the Valley makes it very simple to consume their technology. Even my elderly mother can do amazing things now with her portable device. When you think about the network stack and the technology and the complexity and cost, when it is simple to consume, there is a positive experience. And when you have a positive experience, you want more of it. So what Allstream has brought to market with the IT Cloud View makes consuming a very complicated thing very simple to do. And I think that's really like the precipice of having more loyalty, more dollars spent inside the business. And that goes downstream. If I'm the bakery and I'm leveraging the managed service from Allstream for my Wi-Fi, cash register, POS system, it gives the baker the opportunity to offer the most simple experience to their customers coming into the store.
Excellent. So 100% of our audience voted that they want to hear this question answered. So I'm going to put it out there. They'd like to know how companies can start identifying those pain points with their customer experience. How do they know, or how can they start figuring out what they're doing wrong so that they can start to figure out what they need to do right? Dan, maybe do you want to start things off? And then if anyone else wants to jump in, feel free.
Yeah, I think similar to the previous question, it's really benchmarking high effort experiences. We know that retaining a customer leads to more revenue over time than not managing churn and trying to constantly acquire new customers. So as Steve mentioned, it's benchmarking high effort experiences. How well are we retaining customers? What is their loyalty and product growth over time? What's their sentiment over time? And so there's a lot of different KPIs that could be measured, but it really starts with the data. Just, again, understanding the processes that you have, the intersections that you have with consumers. Like if you look through their daily lives, like how do they consume a product and service? where are all the intersections with your organization, and how do you measure success at each step of the journey and tracking that? That's really that first step. And then if you put that together, ultimately you get a lens at, again, there's different metrics, but net promoter score, customer effort score, sentiment, those metrics are these aggregations of all of the individual experiences that I've had with you. Because what we found at Cisco, it's not just when you have one bad experience, will somebody leave you. It's these sequential and recurring failures to meet their expectations that will make a customer churn or will lead to a bad sentiment. So it's really just putting yourself in that consumer's shoes, starting to track every step in their journey and looking for where can we make this simpler? To Joey's point, how can we simplify that journey for them? How could we make it feel more natural for them to interact with us so that they feel empowered? Like it's like, wow, I have your product and service, and it just works for me.
I think Dan's touched on this a bit before, which is the last place you want them is calling you, right? So understanding all of the touch points and when those are working is critical, right? And advanced contact centers are helping to do that and really give you those touch points that aren't just when are they calling you, because calling you is the last resort for many people. Right. And you want to give them the tools so that they don't have to call you, that they can self-service, that they can interact with the products and services that you have in the way in which they want to interact with them.
Yeah, and it's definitely a journey, but I had one of our customers tell us, if my customer has to call me, that's bad. Like something went wrong, to Steve's point. And especially in this day and age, we talked about it a little bit in security. Consumers are sharing so much information about themselves. The products and services are connected today, so we know when they're not working. So as a consumer, we're like, hey, this organization should know whether something went wrong with my product or service. So if you should be reaching out to me. And I'll make an admission, I work with customer engagement technologies here at Cisco. But in my spare time, I actually don't enjoy calling contact centers. It's not something I want to do. But if a contact center is calling me, that's totally cool, right? I mean, reach out to me and let me know that you have an issue that you have resolved for me on my behalf. So if you build out this vision over time with data, with digital engagement, and you really build it out to the end state, it's really contact centers becoming all outbound, proactive engagement where I'm just working digitally as a consumer. And if an exception occurs, that data flows through to a live resource and they are reaching out to me across my preferred channel to advocate on my behalf so that I don't have to put in any effort. And that's really the end state goal that, Cisco and Allstream have around contact center or customer engagement strategy. Definitely there's some maturity across different organizations where some folks are ready for that or not, but the foundation that we're laying with our cloud contact center or premise or hybrid contact center, but bringing in cloud services with the right data, with the right artificial intelligence, we can build these use cases that start to create these experiences that we described here that can frankly expect after going through the last 24 months of shifting from what I would call legacy communication to now seamless, borderless, channel agnostic type collaboration that we're all getting used to now.
There are some great questions coming in from our audience. I want to touch on one. So customer experience matters to this particular person, but this person is finding that some of their colleagues don't necessarily agree that it is something that their company should focus on. So there's this mismatched experience being delivered to their customers across different departments. And so how can, whether it's this person or leadership, how can they unify, lead this change, affect this charge almost to start delivering consistent and great experience for the customers?
Data.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, the proof is in the experience. I mean, a lot of times it's easy to talk about something anecdotally, but then you experience it and you're like, wow, that was bad, right? So even as what we mentioned earlier, documenting what your customers are experiencing every day, like the breakdown, even something like direct mail. We use this example a lot. Like I can call a contact center in many cases and I'll ask let me preface, they'll upsell me on 5, 10 different things potentially, but I could have gotten an offer in my mailbox and accepted that, and they would have no idea. And as a consumer, it's like just awful. It's like, you don't know me, you don't know anything about our relationship. So, there's a couple of things that consumers expect. They expect our relationship with them to be proactive. They expect it to be contextual. They expect it to be secure. They expect it to be pervasive across multiple channels. The list goes on and on. But if you can sort of just document what are consumers experiencing, and then maybe even look, these consumers had negative experiences and they left us. Those are the type of meaningful metrics that really start to drive change in organizations. And until you really sort of document and experience what consumers are having, like the experiences they're having every day, it's hard to really quantify that. I'll give an example. I won't name names, but there were some organizations in the travel industry who will call their competitors. They will call their competitors' contact center to look at what's the experience. What is the queue times? What is that agent experience like, to not only benchmark themselves, but benchmark others in their industry? So, companies take different tactics here, but really, to get attention, you have to really measure the customer experience and be able to describe that in real terms of what's happening out there.
Yeah, and just quickly, what we're seeing a lot of now is traditionally when you think about the network, it is a cost center. And now it is actually begin to deliver ROI, because the data that we're starting to collect within the network in terms of foot traffic, visitors, what people are doing on the network, becomes objective information that can drive decisions. To the question specifically, there's a lot of subjective ideas or thoughts that are out there, but data can ground things to make it objective, to drive strong business decisions to keep your customers spending money with you.
And I'll just, add one last thing. If the experience conversation isn't enough, start with cost savings. The reality is, by investing in digital engagement tools, you can potentially lower your traffic into the contact center. And the highest cost in customer engagement is people. Loaded cost of agent, $50,000, $70,000 a year. So if you can digitize interactions, empower consumers more, and lower the traffic into the contact center, then effectively you need to invest less in those human assisted engagements, which drive significant cost savings. So you can start at the efficiency level and then move into customer engagement, or try to tackle it holistically. There's different journeys, but again, Allstream has this experience. They can look at your environment and identify the use cases that will be most meaningful for quick hits, and then evolve that over time.
Excellent. We are getting close to the top of the hour, and since we're almost out of time, I just want to give our panelists one final chance to convey, maybe in 30 seconds or a little longer than 30 seconds, but what's one key message, one key takeaway that you'd like each person who joined us today to take away with them and to use to kind of help them build out what they need for their future business growth?
I could take this one first. I would actually give 3 things to keep in their mind, right? They want something easy, they want something secure, and they want to make sure their customer experience is going to be good, right? That's all the kind of topics we talked about today. And I would say the kind of overarching theme to that is a managed service, right? Make it easy with managed service. You don't have to worry about hardware. It improves your customer experience because it's always going to be up to date. The managed service is going to be tailored to fit your needs, where you don't have to do that all by yourself. And it's going to be secure, right? So either that's a firewall, or even security cameras, or a dedicated connection. All of those play into a consultative approach that Allstream brings for managed service.
Yeah, I would just leverage what Matt said. Everyone's at a different spot in their journey. And so leveraging someone like Allstream to come in and evaluate where you are and what technologies you can use and what services we could bring to help you along that journey. That's what I would want you to walk away with, right? Is it's not a one size fits all. It's not go buy a piece of technology. It is how you bring all of the technologies together in a cohesive way and have someone that can do that with you in a flexible manner. Because the flexibility of what Allstream can bring, the breadth of products, the solutions, right? Everyone is at a different point of that digital transformation, and you need someone that can help you say, hey, here is a roadmap for that journey. Here are the things you should be looking at and how you can bring those together and leverage people that have skills and experience in those areas so that you're not doing it alone.
I'd
Dan,
just say,
Joey, do you want to?
yeah, I'd just say, don't go on this journey alone. There is so much cool stuff that we've talked about today, innovative technology that you may not have been aware was available to you, and if you were aware, may have been cost prohibitive. That is no longer the case. Allstream has brought to market the ability to get your hands on all this cool technology that's going to go directly to the bottom line in terms of better customer experience. So don't go on the journey alone. Call your Allstream counterpart and get some information, and information is power.
Yeah, and I'd agree. I mean, the big enabler these days around technology is the cloud, but it's not one dimensional. Everything we talked about here around customer experience, security, network, you have to execute on all of those well to drive revenue, operational productivity, operational efficiency. So if you need somebody with best practices who's been down this road, who can help guide and architect with you side by side, again, Allstream, Cisco are here to help drive success here.
You guys did a great job doing my role as a marketer, so thank you very much. Appreciate it. Thank you to our audience for joining us today. We are at the top of the hour. This is the last webinar in the Future of Work series. We have many more webinars and actually a few series planned for this year, so stay tuned. You can find the on-demand recording of this series and other webinars on allstream.com, but we will be emailing the link out to the recording, so you'll get that in your inbox shortly. To our panelists, thank you for digging in today, and I hope everyone has a great day. Take care.
Thank you.